from last week, so I appreciate that. That being said, do I have a approval for the minutes from the last
Yeah, motion
meeting?
to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any comments? No. Minutes pass. Are we going to go right into the presentation now?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. I turn it over to Chief Collette.
Sure. Thank you. The reason I'm here tonight, and some my folks in the back, we've had a couple amazing stories here over the last couple of weeks that I felt it'd be important to recognize them on a public forward look. Two of the officers from our CPR save, unfortunately, one's mother-in-law had a little medical spout, so she's not here, and the other's on vacation, but I have one of those representatives here. And then the second officer in the back is here from an incident that occurred on the highway. It'd just be best if I called up Officer Dan Kaufman. You know if that microphone works?
It should.
It should work. So just to give you a little information, we had a medical call at the Mazzucato Bakery the other day. I happened to be working the road covering while it occurred, and had really great staff who responded within a minute or two, actually 2 to 3 minutes maximum. Found a patient who was unresponsive with no pulse and not breathing, and they immediately went into life-saving measures. That patient has survived and is now breathing on their own and survived to see his grandchildren on Father's Day. So with that, I'd like to recognize Officer Cruz, who's not here, Officer Green, and Officer Kaufman, and I'll just read the proclamation. On June 17th at 1:30, you were assigned to your routine patrol duties when a 911 call was received from 412 Cromwell Avenue, Mazzucato Bakery and Pastry Shop for the report of an unresponsive male who was not breathing. Within 2 minutes of being dispatched, you and fellow patrol members arrived on the scene where you found the male patient unconscious and unresponsive. You and your fellow officers immediately assessed the patient, confirmed he was not breathing, and initiated life-saving measures. You initiated rescue breathing protocols and simultaneously applied the AED patches to the patient's body. The AED analyzed the patient and did not recommend a shock cycle. You and your partners began CPR, providing life-saving compressions and oxygen to the patient before the arrival of emergency medical ambulance services. As a result of your actions, the patient's heart restarted and began beating independently. The patient was later transferred to Hartford Hospital, where it was learned he had survived in this medical emergency. I was informed that the patient's heart was functioning and he was again breathing on his own. Before the patient's collapse, he told the store clerk that he was buying goods to share with his family on Father's Day. Had you not intervened as quickly as you had and not provided immediate life-saving measures, the patient would not likely have survived. Your actions saved the patient's life and you are commended. I am proud to recognize you for your dedication, professionalism, and devotion to duty. Your actions reflect favorably upon yourself and law enforcement and the Rock Hill Police Department. And in recognition, I am pleased to award you the Distinguished Service Award, along with Officer Cruz, who's not here, and Officer Green. I thank you.
Chief.
And I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do this in front of you. I just been in the role for only a couple months, and I'm getting a lot of fantastic stories to be able to share, and I couldn't think of a better place publicly to recognize these officers tonight, and I hope to be able to do it again hopefully sooner than later. But Officer Shiszeki, why don't you come on up? On June 5th, 2023, around just after midnight, having completed your patrol shift, you were off-duty traveling on 84 en route to your home. While in your marked patrol vehicle, you came across a rolled-over vehicle in the high-travel lane of the highway. This section highway is not illuminated, and you cannot safely stop before the accident scene. You pulled off to the shoulder of the highway a short distance ahead and activated your emergency lights before running back to the accident. While running toward the rolled-over vehicle, you called 911 and requested Connecticut State Police to respond to the scene. You observed two individuals moving around the rolled-over car, standing dangerously close to oncoming traffic. You verified no other occupants were located in the rolled-over vehicle and began to order the pedestrians off the highway and out of harm's way. At this time, you were forced to place yourself close enough to the pedestrians to ensure they received your instructions. You put yourself within feet of the rolled-over vehicle, which exposed you to significant risk. At this moment, another oncoming vehicle narrowly avoided striking the pedestrians and impacted the rollover vehicle mere feet from where you were standing. You then guided the pedestrians to a safe location and began using your strobe feature of your flashlight to warn oncoming drivers. Your actions saved other operators from striking the rollover vehicle and ensured that you and pedestrians were safe. You remained on the scene until further emergency services could respond and secure the accident scene. Your quick thinking and intelligent response helped deter oncoming vehicles in the high-speed lane from what would have been a catastrophic impact. Your actions undoubtedly saved the lives of pedestrians, other operators, and passengers traveling on the highway, and you're to be commended. I'm proud to recognize you for your dedication, professionalism, devotion to duty. Your actions reflect favorably upon yourself, law enforcement, and the Rock Hill Police Department, and that I'm pleased to award you the Distinguished Service Award. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Collette, for that ceremony. We appreciate that you did it here at Public Safety. We'll be sure to mention it at council.
Thank you.
As well. All right. Before we start our departmental updates with the Health District, Charles Brown, we will just ask for public comment. It's always open to public comment. I don't believe we have any public comment here. Anybody from the public wish to approach the podium? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to departmental updates and jump right to the Health District's report from Charles Brown. Charlie, welcome. Your audio is not on.
Not yet.
Not yet.
No.
You're still showing muted at the top of the screen.
Oh, my.
Uh-oh.
Oh, God. I got 20 Harleys.
That looked like aliens have taken over.
He's trying.
Still can't hear you, Charles.
You're still showing muted, so.
Okay.
Maybe we can come back to.
What we'll do is, if you just hang in the wings, and as soon as you have audio, you say hello, but we'll start with the fire department's report.
Okay, thank you. And
Chief Gary.
you do have, gotta move closer to the microphone. You do have our monthly report, but just to go over a couple quick little highlights. Incidents responded to were 45. Our training off hours were 251. However, those hours will go up, as will the year-to-date, as we did find a glitch in one of our firefighter one candidates. His hours weren't recorded properly, so those will jump up a little bit. The staffing is remaining constant. We had one resignation. One of our members moved out of town. However, it shows 2 military leave of absences. Since that report, one of our military members has come back on the line. We're very excited to say that we're working with the town IT to develop and release an updated website managed by the fire department. We have a firefighter with a college degree in IT and with a great deal of experience in building websites leading that effort. We had a total of 6 drone activations in the month. We've experienced no injuries in the past month, and our revenue recovery program, generated 2 chargeable events, both the results of motor vehicle accidents. A couple other highlights, And to make Mona's Day, as of today, the LAH reimbursement program has billed out a total of $97,000, and I believe at this point the town is owed about $15,000.
You're about right.
Since January 1st, and I'm mentioning this to close the loop on my report last month, since January 1st, we've had 315 calls for service, which is just about 6% greater than we were this time last year, but we are seeing the call volume start to level out. And we are still averaging about 15 firefighters per call, which is misleading a little bit because we have a number of single and two company calls, which actually brings that number down a little bit. And the membership has about 5,300 individual responses to these calls for service, which is a lot of time spent leaving your house. A couple other things, we participated in the Memorial Day Parade, then had our own memorial service afterwards, which went very well. We planned for and conducted a recruitment open house on June 10th in the training grounds behind Station 2. We consider this to be a success. We are currently processing 2 applications for firefighter and 2 applications for cadet. And we have promises from 2 other individuals to apply for firefighter positions. So our next event will coincide with Fire Prevention Week and will most likely be a Touch a Truck event. Let's see. Lastly, as you probably know, the Secret Service parked their presidential motorcade in the bays at the fire headquarters during the president's recent visit. For obvious reasons, there was no information released prior to the visit. However, the Secret Service was nice enough to provide limited exterior tours before the president's visit. Much appreciation goes to the police department for coordinating that event and putting it all together. We just really provided the floor space, and they did all the work for us. I stand ready for any questions.
Councilor Prakash.
Yeah, thank you, Chief, for that report. Couple of questions. One on the website. So
Yes.
You're rebuilding the website, and the individual who's doing it is he or she is doing it as a volunteer, or is it
Yes. One of our members, firefighter Franzen, this is what he does for a living, and he asked to be involved. He's met with the IT people downstairs. They put him through a training course, and we'll have a progress update tomorrow night when I meet with him, but we're looking forward to this.
Okay, so it's in conjunction with IT.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so no, I was just wondering if you needed more support for that, like in the sense of
Are you
technical support.
volunteering?
No, I'm not.
Okay, just check.
No, thank you. I don't have that expertise, but it's good to know that somebody has it in your organization. The second question I have is I was informed of a fire at the Housing Authority, a fire alarm, I guess, and like a response to that was kind of brought up with one of the residents actually reached out to me. Is there something you want to report on that? Was it like out of the ordinary or anything like that?
No, we go there several times a month, so without knowing the time and date and getting you the information you're looking for, I have no out of the ordinary knowledge of any out of the ordinary calls down there. And on top of that, I did talk to Sue Caratanuti a couple times this weekend, and nothing was mentioned. So if
No,
you can
that-
help me out with a time and date, I'd be happy to look into it.
Sure, I will. I can do it offline, and
Yeah.
I can bring it up. Like I
Please.
don't have the details of the event or anything like that. Just
Okay.
was just curious because in terms of like, I generally don't get like any like direct resident connections with me about anything, but there was this one, and that's why I wanted to bring it up.
Rich, Mark, anything? Forward me some kind of information I can get back.
No, it's totally fine. I mean,
Okay.
it is
Yeah.
what it is, yeah. I mean, nothing out of the ordinary, right?
Nothing that we know of.
Okay, great, thank you.
All right, great. So, and I asked this question earlier, and I will ask it of police when they get to their report, but the TPC has grown nicely back to its original status, but that Silas Dean Highway is backed up in the morning when they're going down, and in the evening coming north when it lets out, and it really locks it up. Any special issues surrounding that?
Yeah, we did notice quite a bit of difficulty in getting the members into the firehouses to get out to calls. I talked to Deputy Chief Gentili earlier today about that, and I then rounded it out with a talk to the town manager, and next year we're going to do things a little bit differently. The traffic, I think, really, the volume really surprised all of us.
Yeah, it's substantial for sure,
Yes.
but nowhere else to
And
go.
and not just on 99, but also on Route 3 was particularly heavy too.
Okay, thank you. Charlie, are you possibly ready, or are you going to beg off for this meeting? Or has he already? Looks like our health district may have. All right, so we will move on from fire department to the next departmental report, which is ambulance.
I know David Kemp is here from Aetna. I don't know if David's going to be doing a presentation, if you wanted to. Did you want to?
I would like our ambulance to go
Okay,
first.
okay, fine. I apologize, our chief could not make it this evening. We had a total of 405 calls for the month of May, bringing the total to 1898. A total of 14 canceled calls, 8 of which were no patient contacts. 8 calls were canceled prior to the arrival. Typically, an officer on scene would cancel EMS prior to us arriving on scene. 8 lift assists for the month, 23 patient refusals, which translates to no transport. 4 opioid-related transports, 4 cardiac arrests for the year. In May, there was 1 cardiac arrest and 1 opioid call. 70 hours of training for the month. Both were mandatory elderly care reporting sessions, and there is an online component to that as well, where there is a test that is taken and certificates awarded. They had a health service standby at the Rocky Hill Community Center. We've been trying to do that every couple months, and we hope to start that back up again in the fall. Held a first aid, CPR, AED, stop the bleed class for town garage employees. We had an EMT class in the spring, finished with possibly 4 new members. 1 of those students has passed the written and practical exam and is riding as a probationary member with us. 3 are still in the testing phase. EMS week was May 21 through May 27. Gifts were distributed, and on-duty crews were treated to a meal, whether it be dinner or lunch, during their week. We have 39 active writing members. We have associate members, which help out with standby events and office clerical work. Those are 9. We have 15 probationary members at present. 2 are on medical leave. 1 is back. One of those is back at least for administrative duties at this point. On school leave, currently in college, we have 4. There is another EMT class that's being planned for in the fall, and we'll be starting up community CPR classes, and I'd like to reach out to the Chamber of Commerce also to work with businesses for CPR. And we have assisted, even though it's probably for the next month's report, we did assist, as we have in years past, with the medical coverage and medical tent down at the TPC tournament. I also want to point out there is something I was here months earlier concerning trends, and I like to talk about trends, but We have, because of an aging population in town, we have a lot of falls. And I know that that came up at a previous public safety meeting. We do have a chart on page, I think it's 28 of the packet. I believe it's 28 of the packet that does talk about the number of falls we've had as far as over the month.
Lift assist by location?
No, it's the next slide. It would be the next slide, essentially, which is, you can see the
Refusal
bar.
of dispatch complaint?
Right.
Yeah, but the number of falls, we as well as Aetna, do an inordinate number of lift assists. Oftentimes, people are just, whether it be slipping out of bed, slipping in the bathroom, or in out of a wheelchair, or using an assisted device, and they fall, not necessarily injured, though we try to, we don't have x-ray vision, we can't see what's going on, so we try to convince people to go to seek a medical attention, but they can refuse. So oftentimes falls result in refusals. But Aetna is here to present. You know, Aetna is a 24/7 service, and we are volunteers from 6 p to 6 a during the week and 24/7 on weekends. But Aetna is here to present their data.
Before we do that, any counselor, any questions?
Yeah, so no, actually I have questions mostly about the charts. So I was looking at them and, I mean, there are a few additional ones here which is nice. So it's fine, like if you want to do the presentation and then
All right.
I can kind of go
We'll
to
turn
that,
it
unless
over
you
to-
have a question.
We'll turn it over to staff.
Yeah.
You have Aetna in here?
Oh, they're right here.
David Kemp is present.
David's here.
Yep.
Okay.
It's ahead of hers.
How you doing? So my name's David Kemp. I'm the clinical operations manager for Aetna Ambulance. Thank you for having me back again this month. So real quick, I'll go through some of the numbers. I also have some stuff that was not sent over in the report that I think would be very interesting. Actually curtails to what the police department was presenting earlier. Is actually really some exciting stuff to talk about. So I think there's some more good news that you may not even know about. So maybe some more opportunities to recognize some people. So it's good. Yeah, right. That's the stuff we like to hear about. So going through our call volume. So for Aetna, our responses for last month, 227 solo responses and a combined responses of 281. When we go and I actually broke down what because Kim was alluding to earlier when we talk about the cancellation rate. Overall, 71% of calls that we respond to in the town of Rocky Hill result in some sort of outcome where there's some compensation for both us as well as Rocky Hill Volunteer Ambulance Association, with a 28.99% cancellation rate. When you compare that and extrapolate that out to towns of similar sizes, it's slightly on the higher end. I would not say that it is abnormal. Again, with what Kim was alluding to, that there is an elderly population in Rocky Hill that may be a little bit higher than some other towns, but something to trend and to watch over the course of the next probably few months as I get a hold of the data that we're actually trying to get a hold of and understand. So I can certainly share that file with you guys later on too. I don't mind sharing that with you guys. Opiate responses, we only had one opiate response for the month, so not much to talk about there. And we only had one cardiac arrest that was worked in the town of Rocky Hill for the month of May. Are you guys, I'm going to probably use a word that you haven't heard of before. Kim may have heard of it, so feel free if you needed me to clarify this. Have you all ever heard of Utstein survival before?
No.
Okay, we'll start from there then. So Utstein is it's a metric that is determined by the American Heart Association. What it does is it looks at people who present in cardiac arrest that is witnessed by bystanders and that have either CPR provided prior to arrival, which is defined by first responders, don't count as that. It's basically any citizen that is trying to help out, and if AEDs were attached. So I'm going to start off with the bad, and then we're going to go to the good. So in the year 2022, so the only way, so this is a recap of all the data from 2022, there were only 15 that would count into this.
Before you go on, just so for like a summary of what you just said.
Yeah, I
is-
can summarize it.
So cardiac arrest
Yes.
already worked on by a layperson or somebody else at the site prior to you getting there. That's the
Yes.
distinction.
So correct, and that's what falls into what's is called this Utstein metric. All right, so already something happening, right? Because they have found through all of their studies that they do nationwide, worldwide, that people who receive CPR before first responders, before ambulance gets on scene, have a higher rate of survival. Okay.
Oh, all right.
So that's what that is talking about. So this is, again, I'm going to start off with 2022, which was not the prettiest year for us at all. It was a 0% survival rate for 2022, so I'm ripping the Band-Aid off there. We had a 33%, which is equated to 12%, or excuse me, 12 total cardiac arrests for 2022 received some type of bystander CPR. We only had one use of a public AED in that time. So that does not matter if it was shock or no shock, it's just that they got an AED on the patient.
Are
So
we talking 5 or 25?
so 12 total was
12.
for the number of people who received CPR before arrival,
12 zero survivals.
and 0 survivals. Not good. So certainly left us. You know what? I'd like to, and when we talk with our and Kim and I and Bryant and Nancy, we've all talked with Hartford Hospital about it. Sometimes you have to start from the ground and you have to work your way up. So it gives you some room for improvement. So which leads us into this year. So far the eligible Utstein cardiac arrest. So this is going to be different numbers than what we're reporting to you overall, because some of them get ruled out. Traumatic arrests get ruled out. It's just cardiac of nature or unknown. We have a 40% survival rate so far this year. That means that out of 5 cardiac arrests that we have had so far, 2 have already survived to discharge out of the hospital with neurological function. And that's not including the save that you talked about earlier today. So that number has actually gone up, and that is really, really, really exciting to see. The CPR use is now up to 50% for this year out of those cases. And the public AED use, we've had 2 instances where an AED was applied before EMS or first responders arrived on scene. There are some ways that we can look at addressing that, and I think, and I'll kind of defer to you too as far as what the dispatches, the protocol is. They're really pushing this no-go kind of concept, and I believe you guys do that because we hear very early on in the town of Rocky Hill if it is a cardiac arrest. And it's really what that is know the patient's not responsive, know the patient's not breathing, go with CPR. Go ahead and get hands-on, hands-only CPR, and start that process going, because that's going to increase that patient's chances for survival. And I think if that's not something that is currently happening, I'd be most happy to help out and anything that we can do to empower that situation. Although, again, I think it probably already is happening. Just based on this metric, I haven't seen numbers this high for any town or city that we cover. So this made me really excited when I ran it. I was like, oh, geez, this is great. I get to share some really promising and good news to about your citizens and how that's going. So hopefully we can keep that up, and we really want to keep those numbers high. And just as a context for those that may not be aware, the survival rate for people out of hospital cardiac arrest, the survival rate is about 10% nationally. So it's it's a very low number to begin with. So to be at, even though it's a low, 5 is not a huge number, 40% is a really, really great number. And it sounds like it's higher than that after what we were just told about earlier today. So with that, I know you guys have the charts and everything in front of you. I'm open for any questions that you may have.
Councilor Prakash.
Yeah, so, no, thank you for that really good news story, right? Actually, I saw your charts, and I think we are getting somewhere now, because both of your data is kind of put together on those charts. And I have a quick question first on this chart of the 2023 year-to-date total opioid responses in Rocky Hill. Aetna did not respond to any of those, right? I just wanted to make sure that I'm reading this correctly. Only RHVAA and Oh.
So we're talking about the 2023 data for May?
The 23 one, yes.
So that was, I believe, a combined response, actually. So that is Etna and Rocky Hill for one.
Because I see the green and the orange, and the green and the orange, green is the total and the orange is the Rocky Hill volunteers. And I don't see any Aetna there. I'm just checking if it's a data issue or really you didn't have you didn't have to respond to anything.
So I believe, and this is just my understanding of the way the data was presented, is I believe it was actually a co-response. And I think in order to not show it as two, because it really was only one,
Right.
that it would be one. So in our data, I believe it was with the Rocky Hill Medic 5 paramedic, which was one of our, they're one of our team members. So I see that data, but then we take that, if it was with RHVAA, we move it over to their number. So that way it's not a duplicate. And so it's not actually saying there's two, it was only one patient. Does that make?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I was just, because it was.
I could see how that could be
through-
confusing.
it was through May, and I saw no responses from Aetna. there.
Right,
So I was
right.
just,
So-
that's kind of.
You would typically, on an opioid call, an overdose call, you would have a medic dispatched with the basic life support unit. So you would have Aetna coming
You will always have Aetna there.
for that type of call.
Okay,
yeah.
I see what you're saying. Because in the earlier years, it was broken down, and that's why I got confused. Because in the 22 one, there are 3 bars there, right? In the 22 one, if you see, there it's broken down by Aetna, volunteer, and total.
You're talking about the first chart with the opioid data 2021?
Yeah, 22 and 21 too, I think. Both of them have three bars in there.
Okay. And also, I think.
Actually, 22, sorry. 21 has only 2.
Yeah. I also think what may be confusing also is sometimes, because Aetna is here more often than the volunteers are. The volunteers, once again, are 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. and then 24 hours on the weekends. So that makes sense that the bars would be higher.
No, and that's totally fine. I was just, because there was a difference between how the 22 data looked and how the 23 is looking, right? Because in 22, you did break it down by both. Is that, am I reading that correctly? Or?
I think you are reading it correctly. What I actually think it is a little bit from the 2021 and 2022 data is probably a little bit of an oversight. I'll take ownership of that on my part, of not parsing that out a little bit better. I do think there is some element of, and probably the 22 data, of some maybe duplicated response where it was the same patient, but both RHVAA and Aetna were there for the same, so it might have raised the number slightly. But it's definitely, as we start to gather data and actually putting it together to get us a better picture of everything, I think that'll start to smooth out. And we can certainly go back and look at some of that historical data and clean that up so it's a little cleaner.
No, that's totally fine. And that's what I thought, like it was a data issue most probably, and it's just, you need to do the little bit of a cleanup there. So that's fine. As long as it's consistent, that's fine, right? I mean, if we just put everything in your bucket, that's fine. If you put everything in their bucket, that's fine too going forward. As long as we don't see like, sometimes it's in 2 buckets, sometimes it's not. That's all I'm saying.
And maybe what we'll do, for the future months is we'll just say, particularly on the opiate and the cardiac arrest, is these are the responses for the town, as opposed to trying to parse out like who was who.
Exactly.
Just say, if there were 2, say there was 2. If there was, it doesn't matter who responded, but there were 2 opiate arrests. So I get what you're getting.
Exactly.
So I think that's completely a reasonable request.
No, totally fine. And I'm trying to essentially simplify this a little bit, because I do think we have a lot of charts. We can actually simplify them a little and have less, actually for you guys to, but we have, so something like I wanted to go back to one quick thing on the charts is there is this chart, I think page 36, at least on my PDF. It looks like this, Kim.
Okay.
Right? And I was thinking this might be a good prototype for what you have got in the EMS responses, right? You have 3 years of data, right? It can be actually kind of consolidated like this into one. And something which I think PD does very well too. So we can do it offline after the meeting probably. I can just give you an idea of what I'm talking about, because I think this might work. This kind of a pro forma might work, because you already do this, right? And then if we can just, instead of having 3 years all the time in 3 different charts, you can just put it on one chart just like this. And then you have the line going essentially, and that's what PD does too, actually. So there will be some consistency between the PD and like what do you guys do too in that way, right? I think the PD charts are pretty good. I think if you want to, I mean, not that I'm saying yours are, I mean, where it's a work in progress for you guys, I think.
They're good for us to assimilate the information.
No, they are really good, and I think it's a great start. So I just want to thank you for putting it together. I was bringing up PD because I think they have been doing this for 3 years at least, 3 or more, and so like it has kind of like matured to a point. So I think it's a good way to like kind of do a sneak peek and see. Like,
Yeah,
if we
no, absolutely, and it's a learning process for me, and I'm
Yeah.
glad to be a part
No,
of it.
but thank you for putting it
having me.
together.
So
Yeah.
any constructive criticism and any assistance that you can help.
not even a
help-
criticism, just a feedback and
Yeah.
trying an input. Let's put it that way. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, I mean, it was good to know that you were responding to the opioids because we were always getting a Rocky Hill report, and there'd be maybe one, and we're saying, we're not getting touched by the opioid issue at all. And then we found out that you're primary on that. You're responding to those. And we also know there's a geographic issue, that it's mostly on the Berlin Turnpike outside of our geographical territory, which, in any event, it's education, right, for us. So I'm okay with it still being delineated on who's responding to it so we know. And we don't just have a zero opioid issue. We have responded to it. Interesting thing on the CPR training, I just was wondering, do we have any way to understand how many CPR trained or modestly trained local residents and maybe town staff that are out there? Do you regularly come across people that volunteer that they're CPR trained and comfortable in applying it?
So I don't have a good number for that. Some of the things that we recently did, and it's something that I think we can, because it's very new in its infancy. So what we started at Aetna was.
I mean, should we start a campaign locally saying, hey, are you CPR trained?
It's not even being CPR trained, right? So it's like you don't need to necessarily be certified. But what we've been trying to do as part of this cardiac arrest work group, which is an employee-run. I tried not to take any credit, but they're always like, "Oh, Dave did this." I'm like, actually, it was the employees. They went out actually recently to a Hartford Athletics soccer game, and they actually just brought like 4 CPR mannequins and just let people come up to them, and they're like, "This is how you do hands-only CPR. Like, you're not getting a card for it." But we want to tell you, this is what you do. You do this no-go. So if they're unresponsive and not breathing, you don't worry about trying to find a pulse. Just go ahead and do it. You're going to do more good than harm. And if you're trying to do the right thing and we get there and they have a pulse, well, great. Fantastic. That's good. We want that. And that's really where we think the touch points are. I don't know what the number would be for the town of Rocky Hill. I know for Aetna and ASM as a combined training center, we probably certify somewhere between like 350 and 400 people a year, which is not a lot. It feels like a lot, but it's really like when you start talking about population size, it's not. When you look at places like Seattle that have really embraced kind of this education piece, they make it a requirement for the high schoolers in order to graduate and get a diploma, you have to do CPR. I don't know if that's something that we investigate or look into, but I think a lot of it is just making people aware it's okay to do CPR and you don't have to put your mouth on their mouth anymore. That's not, you don't have to do that. I mean, if you feel like doing it, then okay, but really it's all about this kind of hands-only, just doing CPR when in doubt. And, if they start waking up and saying, no, don't do that, then stop. But, yeah, I'm sorry that doesn't fully answer your question, Kim. I don't know if you know any more about specifics
I
of
don't
Rocky
have
Hill.
those numbers because I know that in the past we have done CPR classes for the community. We hope to do that again in the fall because we're getting more CPR instructors in our membership. So we hope to do that in the fall. And as I said, I want to reach out to the chamber also to work with businesses because some of our large businesses in town, it certainly would help out.
So it's actually quite educating to do the infant mannequin and the adult mannequin test, like what's the pressure that you need, and people probably need to experience that.
And usually
know if they're doing, have any confidence to go ahead and apply it.
And usually people are surprised, especially on the infant mannequins, like how much pressure you actually have to do because they're like, it's a baby, you don't want to hurt it. And you're like, well, they're bend. I hate to say it, but they're kind of bendable, and you have to really push hard and push fast. That's kind of the mantra. So certainly, any kind of collaborative effort we can do, I'd be more than happy to help out. And we can, as this group kind of grows, I want them to start reaching out to RHVA and also the towns to see what else we can do to gain awareness of that.
I do have an anecdotal story on the CPR, and I do the hands-free CPR, as a matter of fact. In passing and talking to a woman I know, she asked about hands-free CPR. She heard something about it, and I did a demonstration on something in her kitchen. And then, sure enough, a couple weeks later, she was performing hands-free CPR on someone that she was with at lunch, and they're with us today. So it's just talking about it, just
Sounds
communicating.
like worthwhile to pursue this a little
Yes,
bit.
yes, it is. Yes, it is.
All right, thank you, I'm all set. If you are, town staff, Ray, do you need any questions? No?
No, this is fantastic.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to ask if the Health District is ready to, I kept seeing Charlie jump back on and
Oh.
jump off.
I think he's going to be here.
All right.
Oh, no.
No, Charlie.
Charlie.
It's on us, not you. All right, well, thank you for giving it the try. Charlie, thank you. We have a lot to catch up with you next time. Thank you. All right. If there's anything you'd like mentioned at council, please email me, and I'll be glad to throw out some numbers from you and some information from you, all right? And we're kind of thinking CPR as well with your group. Okay. All right. We're moving to the police report. Chief Collette.
So for the month of May, 3,284 calls for service, 22 criminal arrests, 35 motor vehicle accidents, 1 DUI, 47 infractions issued, 178 warnings, 14 town ordinance tickets, 22 ACO animal control officer incidents, 7 community events, 2 car seat installations, and 419 training hours. On the training hours for Councilor Sullivan, who's not here tonight, I provided both of you a packet trying to respond to his question or inquiry last meeting. He's looking for some more information about de-escalation and conflict resolution and maybe the content of our training. So the packet for which I've given to Daniel to provide him, which you have in your hand, actually spells out the entire list of training and their titles of those classes for the month of May. At the very back of that packet, you'll see a training summary, and I'm kind of mentioning it again to you. But on that final page there, you'll see some 3-digit numbers starting with 102, ending with 901. And what those are the different summary or topic areas that are tracked by the Post Council, which is what gives us our authority to be police officers. So if you were to look through the entire document, you'll see the titles of the classes that we're participating in. But at the end, you'll see the credit hours for which we receive and the topical areas that those hours are applied to. So I hope that's at least a start in the right direction. We can pick up on that next meeting. But you will see if you go through there's just different levels of, it's almost like if you think of it like going to your first year of college, you have a 100 class, a 200 class,
Right.
and so on. And those are how we keep our driver's license, our certification to be police officers, which is a 3-year cycle. So hopefully we can kind of drill that down. But this is really the best of the information I can provide, but we can take it from there for next meeting. As for our community events, of the 7, Sergeant Morgan and SRO Baker participated in a fun run-up at West Hill as a fundraiser to collect money for kids and pledge to run a certain number of laps around the school. Sergeant Morgan also performed a tour of the police department for Bright Beginnings Preschool. On May 13th, Sergeant Foss Rugen did his cadet academy at the Connecticut Police Academy. Essentially, Sergeant Foss is very involved in the statewide cadet academy. It's not just local to us, and participate in that where they go in and they put people through drills and lessons and things of that nature. May 24th, the police departments of Weathersfield and Rock Hill, we kind of combine our efforts for the Tippecop function, which we raise money for the Special Olympics. And May 24th, cadet program at the Rock Hill Police Department, where we're trying to really rebuild that bridge between us and these kids who want to participate. COVID really drilled a hole in our program, and we're looking to really try to build some interest and get the word out about that program again. And finally, on the 30th, as you're aware, we participated in the Memorial Day Parade, so we put that, I think give us a little check mark for a community event there, so we did that. As it relates to so a couple of recent events, you may have heard something in the news. We had a shooting at the Hampton Inn. There was zero threat to community. We kind of ascertained that pretty early on. What it ended up being is 2 different cars of 2 different people who had a love triangle for some common thread of a female involved. So we did locate the car that was struck by bullets and process that. We are aware and have some leads on that case, and it's actively being investigated. And most recently, just the other day, we had a suspect from a robbery for which either was East Hartford or Glastonbury, to be determined. I was talking about that with Dan in the back. But that individual jumped the barrier after his car rolled over and ended up being located at the burger place on Route 3. And that information came to us from a member of our community who actually saw someone matching the description that we had put out. In addition, one of our off-duty officers who was traveling home to go prepare to go to work saw someone walking, and when he heard the call when he was signing on, credit to him, said, I know I saw somebody look just like that. Not even 15 minutes after he came on the road, he calls off that he thinks he kind of knows the last whereabouts and located him having a cheeseburger. Turned out that he was positively identified. It was not our case. We did not have charges. Ended up a lot of our involvement, unfortunately, just took a lot of time. But there was no firearms. Again, no risk, just something you saw, probably newsworthy. That just to give you some closure on that incident there. And of note, we had 4 people out last month on workers, either injury or workers' comp. 2 are workers' comp, 2 are off-duty injuries. Fortunately, 2 of those have returned. We still have 2 out. One is a leg injury that we hope will be resolving itself shortly, whereas the other one is going to require some surgery. It's going to be a long-term leave, probably 6 to 7 months, and that's probably being hopeful. Beyond that, I don't think there's anything I missed. You got the training. Do you have any questions?
Councilor Prakash?
Yeah, no, thank you for the training, and Councilor Sullivan is not here, so I would probably keep this for discussion next time.
Of course.
I had some thoughts about, like, how frequently we should report this, or like how should we report it, like as a summary or,
Of course.
detail. But I think just to, have Councilor Sullivan here, I can just
I gave
table
you
that for
everything I
myself.
have, and we
Yeah.
can we can dial it in, drill it in as best we can.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty good.
Yeah,
view of
it
what
really
we're
is. It really is. It's very-
Revisit it
Sure.
next meeting.
Next meeting, we can revisit it. About the, I had a question about the SRO, like we approved during the budget, and then also thinking about, like, from a staffing perspective, first, like, are you going to go through a recruitment for the SRO position, or is it like something like you're thinking about?
So we're just last we spoke with the manager in Mona. We're waiting for the budget to turn over. There are some discussions that he's having internally. I've not been completely dialed in yet, just waiting for that to kind of turn the page, and we'll be on top of that as directed.
Yeah, we will be meeting with the superintendent and Chief Klett to discuss how this position will fit into their goals and into our goals also.
Absolutely, and that's why I was bringing it up, like, from a broader perspective, for in terms of, like, having personnel on patrol and having enough staff for you, like, fully staffed. Do you see, like, it being kind of an asset at this point, or, like, how do you want to use it? It's going to be, like, dependent on how do you see things play out in terms of, like, how you're deploying the existing personnel, I guess, like, from perspective of just patrols and,
I mean, currently,
omnipresence and things like that.
Those will be
currently
the.
we've talked about this before, but I know we stand where we stand. I'm just waiting for a final word as to give me the green light to
Yeah.
move in what direction the town would like to go. I can tell you that as far as if the position does come from within, we have a highly coveted police department. If we were to go out and have to hire to fill a position, I'd be very confident telling you we could probably have that done in a very short period of time based on how good of a police department we have and our reputation.
That's great to know. Yeah. No, thank you so much. And then one last thing, the incident that occurred with the, should I call it like with the littering or the hate-filled messages, is there any update on those?
At last update, again, there was some information that came out of who attempting to identify somebody who may or may not be local. That has not panned out to identify any individual. I had worked with the town to actually discuss some educational sessions and meetings, quite possibly for this committee as well as the council, about these types of incidents and how they occur, where they occur, and kind of just more informative. As far as the investigation and the element there, right now what we have is our detective who is monitoring social media and working with this, we call it CTIC, but that's statewide information sharing, looking for threads, patterns, and threats, and we have not found anything for us to be concerned about as far as our community being threatened or having any risk thereof of these groups coming back and creating violence. I hope that answers
Yeah,
your question.
no, it definitely does. The follow-up I had for you was in terms of distributing these hateful messages, are you seeing like this happen from your investigation like elsewhere in the state as well? Is it like a pattern like these groups are like going out and doing it, or is it like widespread enough? I don't know like if you know the answer to that, but
You know,
I was just wondering about that.
I will say it is a topic that if it does occur outside of our community, we're going to hear about it in those informational networks that we have. But also the media picks up on these stories pretty rapidly. So I know sometime after our incident, there was another distribution similar to ours, maybe a different topic, but similar in other parts of the state. So it's not uncommon. It's not just Rocky Hill. It's something that unfortunately these groups seize on moments, seize on arrests, and they try to spread their message of disseminate their message to gain followership for their groups. But it's really not, from what I can tell you, we don't have a concern that we have a uprising of these groups within town. This is just an opportunity they took to get their website and message out here locally, and obviously quite disturbing for those two incidents that happened. But so far, it's been quiet, which has been good for us.
No, absolutely. I'm really thankful for that, and thanks for that update. Thank you.
Sure, I think Hartford had something big happen after ours.
Yeah, I recall. I
Or
know
somebody took an opportunity, since there was an event happening, they tried to piggyback on it because they knew the cameras
Correct.
would be watching, so, yeah. I'm going to take an opportunity to thank all our service departments for making our Memorial Day Parade really phenomenal. It was really well attended by the general public, but also by your departments. So,
Yeah.
and you're in, folks are in more than one area. So you have the police and you have the fire and you have the ambulance, but I'm sure there are many members of your department in other floats and what have you. So it was very well supported by everybody, and the town is very appreciative of it. So thank you. I'm
Just
turning
to
to
wrap it
staff.
up, thank you for the opportunity to make that presentation tonight. And as
Oh,
I
yeah.
mentioned, like
Yeah, we want
No.
to, we want
Do
to
that
say
again in the
something at
future.
council, for sure.
Yeah, definitely, and thank you to all the officers, and it was a really nice commendation
Thank you.
letter there. Yeah, thank you so much.
Ray, anything additional?
Just one addition. It's time to update the regional hazard mitigation plan. CROG runs that particular program. So that process has started. We're meeting with all of the public safety departments Friday with CROG and their consultant to start that process. So we'll keep you updated on that.
And do we do our tabletop emergency response?
Not yet.
I think
no.
we were scheduled
That's-
for September as our next go-around.
September? We'll look for it
Yeah,
around
that's
the
last
fall.
year around that
Okay,
time.
all right.
This particular plan is to identify locations and water bodies and other type of physical features that pose a threat, like flooding and limited access to certain locations in town.
Okay, no new business, other business? If not, motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.